so closer to the last one, and a reflection as the circle above and the circle below in a vortex spiral are very similar to each other. They're kind of mirrors, so you kind of, whereas it would take 30 years, or not 30 years, 20 years, 25 years to go from World War II to World War I to World War II, it only took a few years to go from Vietnam to the Gulf War, and now we're seeing, two wars that were right next to each other. So we're fighting a two-front war that started, within a year of each other. And, at this point, we'll start seeing, reflections of this densification of time happening as we approach the tip. And like the tip of a tornado, which is as hard as a diamond, even though it's only spinning air, when you have spinning time, it also is as hard as a diamond is in the, whatever a diamond is in the fourth dimension, which is what time is. And that's when things get really weird, because at that point, the circles near the tip begin crossing themselves. And when they begin crossing themselves, which is really what hardens up time, then you can go forward and backwards. But what's really going on with this Mayan thing is that as you approach the funnel, the bottom funnel of the time vortex, there's back waves, like in physics, when waves hit a wall and they come back and they're underneath the advancing wave. There's back waves which strike the valence, the membrane of time, the cone, the vortex cone, the tetrahedral. If you take a tetrahedron and you look at it, you can see that it's like a squared off tornado. And so we're approaching now very quickly this point, and all of our reaction times are shortened, and so a mistake is sure to be made. In fact, what's going on actually is they're making a mistake a day or so about right now. Almost every day they're passing another law, which is just going to make everything much worse. Yeah. When we hit the eye at the very, very end of this trip, down the vortex, and then we're going to hit the eye, and then there will be no time. And that's what we mean by the end of time.
Well, now, that brings up a few questions. Isn't at least the government and the shadow government, the one that you talked about that has the second space program, they're fully aware of all this, aren't they?
They are.
And but it seems that they're doing everything they can to halt this process, or at least to keep us from entering into it. But that seems like an inevitable process for us, as far as what you're describing.
Well, it is, because the actions of them are not easy to understand. And so we must realize that there's something afoot with them that doesn't make sense in the human realm. Now, what I'm about to say, are we going to a break or anything?
No.
Okay. What I'm about to say is going to sound very controversial, but I'll give you a quick breakdown of what's probably going on.
Okay, good.
The powers that be are ruled by an inner group, and we will have a video series out next year called The Sacred Geometry of Time with Robert Lawler, which was going to explain this in a much deeper way. But this group apparently knows all of the knowledge of the past. It's maybe as far back as several 100,000 years. Okay. And they live here on Earth, and they have lived here for a long time. But they've lived separately until about 6,000 years ago. They lived separately from us. Just in someplace on Earth, in a very nice place. But about 6,000 years ago, the first of many alarms went off. And these alarms have to do with the advance of what we call the end of the Kali Yuga. Now, the beginning of the Kali Yuga was right at the beginning, right near the beginning of the Mayan calendar, 3114 BC. This is the beginning of cities and writing and kingships and slavery and women as chattel and animal husbandry and farming and wars and walled cities and writing and science, and all those things actually began at the beginning of the Kali Yuga. Not because we were getting better, but because we were getting worse. Okay, but not because we were getting worse because there's something going on. The reason those things came into being is because this group that are human but are different went into action. Because at the beginning of the Kali Yuga, 6,000 years ago, the beginning of the Mayan calendar, was a signal in a very long calendar, not 6,000 years, but like 60,000 years.
Okay.
And it said that the end of this age was going to come to an end, and the prophecy said that the sun would explode into gigantic solar flares, which would fry everything on Earth and cause huge Earth changes here on the planet. And this group knew all of this because they had been through it before, and they kept accurate records. So they went into action, and they took a lovely planet filled with tribes of hunter-gatherers, and they transformed it into civilization. And they transformed it into civilization so that they could get out of here before the coronal mass ejections hit. And that is what has been going on for over 5,000, almost 6,000 years, is a central organizing principle decided and governed by a group that we don't even really know who they really are, for purposes which until recently have remained completely hidden in secret. And they've promised the managers that they're leaving behind that they can have the underground shelters and everything. But I don't think that that's really going to help, because I just can't see how that could survive what is foretold.
What's coming.
And that's really what's happening. And the secret space program and all of these things, flying saucers and bases on the moon, and the Nazis and Joseph Farrell's great work on the alchemy that the Nazis were doing. This is all part of this group, developing the technology for what I call Project Good, which stands for Get Out of Dodge. And they're getting out of Dodge, baby. And they're almost out. And if you follow the work of William Grimsley, I don't know if you know who he is. He has these night vision goggles, and he goes out at night and he videotapes these craft that you can't see with your eyes. You can type them in on Google or YouTube. They got a few astounding videos that he's taken.
Good.
Of these gigantic craft. And that's the story. And I figure I might as well get it out now, because you never know when it's going to be too late.
Well, absolutely. Now, of course, some people attach names to these unknowns, and I have read some accounts that these are some kind of an Anunnaki/Atlantean lines. And then, of course, you have some kind of Illuminati bloodlines flowing in there, but nobody seems to really know who they are, except that they're not.
Well, yeah, actually, we do.
You do?
They are. The Anunnaki is one of the words that they have. The Nephilim is another word that they have. These are words created by different cultures: the Hebrews, the Babylonians, the Sumerians, the Persians, to describe these people. Okay, but their real name is very easy, because it describes where they go when they get out of Dodge. And they're called the Aryans. Aryans is just another word for Martians, because Aries is Mars. They escaped the end of the last Kali Yuga. I think at the end of every Kali Yuga, the same cycle occurs every time. It may even be why there is a Kali Yuga. They come to Earth after the Earth has healed from the gigantic coronal mass ejections which occur, and they come back in their ships and they repopulate the Earth. They may even take genetic strains with them, which is what the Genome Project is. They may take all the seeds with them, which is what the Seed Project is. And they take it there and they bury themselves under, because Mars is a pretty inhospitable place, and they wait for the Earth to recover. And they came back 60,000 years ago, and they thought that, that the Earth had pretty much been wiped out, but a few groups had survived. The Native Americans had survived by being in caves, and they tell those stories about how hot it was, so hot that you stuck a stick out the cave opening and it lit on fire. The Chinese survived. One of those Asian groups must have survived, obviously. And some of the Africans survived.
Wow.
And when the Aryans landed, they kept to themselves, but they did have ships, and they went around, and they had an order that they couldn't have any sex with the remnants that were left behind. They could help them. They could teach them how to read and write and how to farm and all the other things, but they couldn't have sex with them. But, those Earth women and the way they move, they just couldn't resist. And so these are humans, but they went to Mars for a long time, and they lost the pigment in their skin. They lost the color in their hair. Their eyes turned blue, green, hazel. They were tremendously big because of the low gravity when they landed here. Very advanced, super advanced, and they've been here for a very, very long time, and they're leaving, and they're going. They're leaving now. There's colonies. I know this sounds completely out of my mind, but I have proof for all this. There's colonies up on Mars. Just type in Hale Crater Civilization on Google. Read Skipper's work, Joseph Skipper's great work on the colony there up in Hale Crater. And this is what's going on. This is the long and short of it. And yeah, they live here. And they actually lived in Norway. That's where they lived because they liked the coolness. They couldn't get used to the heat. And that spiral that exploded over Norway when Obama was going to get his Peace Prize in Norway.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's their weaponry. Here's the problem Obama faces. Okay? These guys are leaving. They're getting out of here because they think that the coronal mass ejections are coming.
Okay.
All right? Okay? They're leaving, and they don't care who runs the United States anymore. Okay? They did up until last year. Now they don't care anymore. Okay? It was always one of them, by the way. But now they don't care. And so Obama's sitting here, and he's got the remnants of their technology. He's got the stuff sitting around, right? And they're probably busily back engineering the Aryan technology, okay?
Right.
And this is what's going on in Argentina and Chile, where they're raiding the tunnel systems.
Yep.
This is the New World Order. These are the managers that have been left behind. The New World Order is not the Aryans. The New World Order is the Aryans' managers.
Right, that would make sense.
Yeah. And this is, the Aryans think of themselves as the people of the red, or the people from the red planet. Okay?
Okay.
And when Bauer changed his name to Rothschild, which means red shield, he was really signifying that he was the shield for this thing. This project, which moved into high gear, beginning of the industrial age. Everyone thinking that they're deforesting the planet, raping the mountainsides, enslaving people, doing all this stuff just because it's something that has gone out of control. But it isn't. It's all the underpinnings of a huge secret project to develop quickly colonies and ships and moving gigantic amounts of goods and services across the gap between here and Mars. And that's the truth right there. And a lot of people are going to know this pretty soon. I'm not the only one that knows what's going on here. And this is all written down, by the way, in ancient texts from India, all of this.
Oh, yes, that's right. You briefly touched upon that the last time, I think.